And welcome back to Capital Tonight. My next guests are never at a loss for words, and they are not shy about speaking their minds. They are, of course, our insiders, and they need no introduction, but we're going to do it anyway because we always do. Steve Greenberg is a pollster with the Siena Research Institute. He once wandered aimlessly around the halls of the state capitol as a press secretary, serving 2 Democratic Assembly speakers. And Bob did some wandering, too. He was in the halls. He did it as a press secretary to the former Republican Governor George Pataki. Now he's with the charter school organization National Heritage Academies. Did I get that right?
Perfectly.
I did. Okay, gentlemen, it's nice to see you.
Great to be with you.
Now that your aimless wandering days are over and you actually have real jobs, it's good to see both of you. Just kidding. Okay, let's talk about the budget. The newest incarnation of what we see as the budget battle, which has actually been kind of muted, I think. I mean, you know, there's a lot of smoke and not a whole heck of a lot of fire.
And I think that's by the governor's design. I mean, the way he rolled this out, he delayed all the, really the tough budgetary decisions, the detailed decisions, to later on, till these task forces report. Tasks force?
I know, it's
report,
hard.
Yeah, it's tough. It's like mothers-in-law, also tough.
Yeah.
But until they report to him on these details, so he sort of stretched out the period that people could shoot at him.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's true. You know, the 1199 Greater New York Hospital Association can't be running ads attacking his Medicaid cuts per se,
there aren't any
because we don't know what they are.
Right.
But what's going to be fascinating is the task forces are supposed to report on March 1st. The governor's 30-day amendments to the budget are due March 3rd.
Right.
So there's going to be a 2-day window where the governor's going to have to pull, and his staff are going to have to pull all this together, send up the 30-day amendments when the governor can legally change what his budget submission is, and then we are exactly 4 weeks away from when the budget is due.
We heard today from Senator Skelos, I don't know if you guys saw this, the majority leader today, things are starting to crumble a little bit around the edges, I think. When you once saw this like solidarity, yes, yes, we love each other, the Republicans are in line ideologically with the Democratic governor and everything's fine and hunky-dory, now that the actual numbers, to the extent that we have numbers, are out, you see Senator Skelos say things like, I think this budget is late. He put out the budget late, which he did not, of course. He put it out on the exact day that he's statutorily required to, constitutionally required to. But still, all those happy moments are kind of crumbling away a little bit.
Well, I think everybody knew that would get tough once you got to the details.
But it was where they were going to split was the question, right? You just didn't know exactly how it was going to manifest itself.
Well, you knew it was going to be school aid because it's always school aid. Now,
Sure.
there's one thing about Albany that everyone can remember is it always reverts to form. And the issues, right, the Senate Republicans are now having trouble with the budget over downstate schools and upstate prisons. Well, you know, is it 2001 or 1991 or I mean, what year is this? This is just like every other budget battle with a Democratic governor and a Republican Senate.
No question about it. Look, the Senate Republicans are saying we are fiscally conservative. We are for no new taxes, just like the governor. We're for cutting. But where do you cut? Mm-hmm. And the two, as Bob just pointed out, the 2 areas, Long Island school aid, upstate prisons, are the 2 areas that can tear the Republican conference apart. And given that they have 32 votes in a body where you need 32 votes to pass a budget, that could be real problematic.
Well, but arguably they have 36 votes because they have the independent Democratic conference. I mean, I don't know where the Dave Valesky is going to be. I mean, he obviously is. It's a different sort of situation, but it's no skin off Jeff Klein's back to vote in favor of keeping Ogdensburg open. I mean, he's, you know, and he got a committee chairmanship in Lulu and everything. So did the rest of them.
Here's the funny thing about this discussion. We're talking about the Senate Republicans who are having trouble cutting in 2 places when, in fact, the Assembly Democrats would have trouble cutting in any of the places. Right? So the Senate Republicans would find some places they'd want to cut. Historically, the Assembly Democrats have never wanted to cut anywhere.
At the risk of putting the cart way in front of the horse, because we're still 7 weeks
That's what we do here. We specialize in that sort of
exactly,
thing.
but we're still 7 weeks away from when a budget's due. But let's play out the end game for a second here. March 31st is a Thursday. Friday, April 1st. Is when the budget has to be passed.
When is Thanksgiving this year? Is it a Thursday?
Any given.
But Governor Cuomo is in a unique position thanks to Governor Patterson and the strategy he unveiled last year. So let's say we
Governor Pataki and his lawsuits.
Let's say we reach Thursday, March 31st. There is no budget. Governor's got to submit an emergency spending bill. We assume he doesn't want to shut down state government. He said he, subsequently, just having hinted that he might, he has said that he doesn't want to do that.
Sure.
So Friday, April 1st, he submits an emergency spending bill to the legislature that attached to it is his entire budget. And he says, Shelley, Dean, here it is. Take it or leave it.
Right.
Here's my budget. Here's the emergency bill. You want to shut down state government? It could be on your shoulders.
Well, the next 4 weeks, I'm not going to bother to have a show. It's been nice seeing you all. You've just heard it here from... No, I'm just kidding. but it probably is going to come down in some way, much like that, unless someplace in the middle they can actually manage to get it together.
But that's why I think that the key for both the Republican Senate and the Democratic Assembly is to go back, you said revert to form, go back to the way it was several years ago and not the last couple of years, and that is the Assembly leader, the Senate leader have to figure out a way to reach a deal, bring it to the governor,
a two-way.
And bring it to the governor and say, Governor, we have a deal, we can be flexible, we can move things around, let's make it a three-way, let's get it done. But I think that's why you're hearing the Speaker telling his conference and saying publicly he thinks that we need to have an on-time budget.
I think Steve makes a great point. One of the misnomers about Albany, and I think this is one place where not you, but other members of the press fall down, is they think that Albany breaks down on partisan lines, Republicans against Democrats. And it doesn't. It never did. It breaks down on institutional lines. And the dynamic that Steve just described happened year after year when Mario Cuomo was governor. It happened less often when George Pataki was governor, but still happened, and was always a fear in the governor's office that the two houses are going to gang up on you, and then you're going to have to take it or leave it.
You know, well, first of all, though, it breaks down on so many more lines and so many, it depends on the issue. It could break down on regional lines, the upstate-downstate divide, which we saw with Mayor Bloomberg, who was here, of course, the big heavy when it comes to the mayors and the Tin Cup Brigade, except they're not this year. Now they're the Mandate Relief Brigade, which is also interesting. A recognition, which speaks to the muted point about why this is such a muted battle, although maybe it will be joined if you're correct, Steve. But right now they're saying, we get it. There isn't money. We get it. We get it. The Long Island 9 that you're referencing, Senator Flanagan was on the show, and he said, I get it. There's going to be cuts. We just want them to be fair, which goes to your point. Whose side does it come out of?
Right. I mean, what's fair? Is it fair that Long Island loses a little bit more than its percentage, but because it's a wealthier area than, let's say, some areas of upstate? So it really is going to be interesting to see how this plays out. The other factor that's hiding behind all of this is we haven't seen the air wars start from, let's say, 1199 in greater New York hospitals, but we also know that there's an air war ready to be launched on the other side as well. The Committee to Save New York, Governor Cuomo in his campaign committee still has a lot of money ready to spend. We're going to see the air war started at one point, but the governor has already started the ground war between he and Lieutenant Governor Duffy traveling all around the state trying to build public support for his proposals.
And I also just want to touch on this before we run out of time. Meanwhile, back in the back rooms where we're, which is kind of ironic, there's some quiet discussions about ethics reform and transparency. But you're seeing these reports now, sort of calculated leaks about what the Assembly Speaker is willing to accept, which would be ostensibly, if you believe the leaks, he's going to say, good, take my client list. Yep, go ahead, as for his outside interests.
Well, you know, the devil's in the details. I think both houses need to be really careful about this because ethics reform, pay-to-play, government corruption is a complicated thing to legislate against, but a very easy thing to describe. You know, the word crook fits nicely on a bumper sticker, and they've got to be real careful that as they go, that they don't hold this thing up on details and then get labeled with being the obstructionist to fair play in government.
Yeah,
it is clear that the voters of this state, the people of New York, want ethics reform. They want real ethics reform. They want disclosure, full disclosure from legislators about their outside income and who they're doing business with, particularly if there's a conflict with their state job. So, but they do have to be a little bit careful. This whole issue of attorneys' clients, whether it's Speaker Silver, Majority Leader Skelos, or any of the other legislators who are lawyers, I mean, people's privacy has to be protected. Not Silver, not
clients.
Skelos,
Sure.
but their clients. So you got to figure out a way to do it. But there is a way to get this done, and they should do it, and they should do it quickly.
Last point,
And a
Bob.
loyal legislator will find a way to hide behind individual privacy to protect their own privacy. And that's the thing to watch for.
Yeah, we will see, because of course we don't have a bill yet. We haven't seen it, so it's hard to say why and what do we need a bill for. Bob Belfiore, thank you.
I have a bill and you can have headlines.
Indeed. And Steve Greenberg, thank you very much. I will see you guys soon. Thanks.
You bet.